Good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 359 of the Prancing Pony podcast, where I would bring Matt to the tomb of Meneldil, if only he was full-grown to manhood.
I already know all the secrets of the realm, Alan.
Yeah, sure.
Sure, yeah. Well, folks, pull up a bench in the common room and join us. I'm Matt, the Nerd of the Rings, and I'm here with the Man of the West, who should probably cause the tradition of the PPP to be set down in a sealed scroll, Alan Sisto.
Are you implying that sudden death or other misfortune might befall? That sounds like a threat to me, Matt.
I would never threaten you,
No,
Alan.
I'm sure you wouldn't. Folks, join us as the stewards can rationalize anything as we complete our 6-episode sidebar through Cirion Eorl.
Folks, no matter how you arrived, you're all welcome here in the common room. At the Prancing Pony podcast, we are reading and talking our way through Middle-earth with plenty of speculation and bad jokes along the way.
Well, yeah, I mean,
They're pretty
guilty
bad.
as charged. That's fair.
Yeah.
I'm really... We do love our deep dives into the lore, though, discussing our favorite themes and a whole lot more.
But we try to keep it light and fun, like a couple friends chatting at the pub, and we're glad you've joined us.
I'm sure you'll be glad you joined as well. But before we get to tonight's chapter discussion, well, it's time to take a look at what's happening this week in Tolkien history. Now, this episode is releasing on February 16th, 2025, so as we usually do, we'll look back a bit and forward a bit more to see what's been happening around these dates in the life of J.R.R. Tolkien. And we'll start with today's date in 1974, just a few months after Professor Tolkien's death in September of 1973. On February 16th, 1974, the Tolkien Society appointed J.R.R. Tolkien as honorary president in perpetuo at the request of his son, Christopher Tolkien.
But going back to yesterday, just 90 years ago, only 90 years ago.
Only 90 years ago, Matt. Yeah.
On February 15th, 1934, the Oxford magazine published Tolkien's poem, The Adventures of Tom Bombadil. Now, note, this is not the book. This is the poem.
That's right.
It's a bit of a wild poem, really. He escapes Goldberry, Old Man Willow, Badger Brock, and my personal favorite, a wight hiding in his house.
Which I never thought would happen, right? Barrow-wight's like hiding out in Tom's house. Yeah.
Yeah, no. And the best part is that the wight does speak in verse. And so let's give you a little taste of it. Dark came under hill, Tom he lit a candle. Upstairs creaking went, turned the door handle. Ho, Tom Bombadil, look what night has brought you. I'm here behind the door, now at last I've caught you. You've forgotten Barrow-wight dwelling in the old mound, up there on hilltop, with the ring of stones round. He's got loose again, under earth he'll take you. Poor Tom Bombadil, pale and cold he'll make you.
Well, Tom's got a thing to say, that doesn't he?
Tom's got something to say about that.
That's right.
Go out, shut the door, and never come back after. Take away gleaming eyes, and take your hollow laughter. Go back to grassy mound on your stony pillow. Lay down your bony head, like Old Man Willow. Like young Goldberry and badger folk in Burrow. Go back to buried gold and forgotten sorrow.
I am glad I gave you that poem to read.
Oh, thanks.
That was fun. Man, we should do an entire episode on the adventures.
We should.
The Adventures of Tom Bombadil. You want to do a whole episode on that?
Yeah, why not?
There's some crazy poems in there, man. I don't know. Cat's a good one.
Mm.
All right. There's so much. That's so much fun. The Adventures of Tom Bombadil. But of course, the book wasn't the one that was published on this date 90 years ago. It was just the poem. Now, also on February 15th, but even further back, 1896. On this day, Tolkien's father, Arthur Tolkien, died from a brain hemorrhage as a result of rheumatic fever in Orange Free State, in what is now South Africa, just 3 days before his 39th birthday. And in emotional whiplash, as we go from laughing about Tom to reading perhaps the saddest letter I've ever seen, the day before, February 14th, 1896, Tolkien wrote, dictated really, a letter to his dad. Tolkien had only turned 4 years old the previous month, but had spent nearly the whole year in Birmingham with his mother and brother. Not sure I'm going to be able to read this without choking up. I remember that I first read this letter. I don't know about you, Matt, but I first came across this letter when my son was 3, and it broke my heart. I mean, I couldn't help but picture my own son, right, writing to me the day before I die, you know?
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's so wild, you know, the idea of how far apart.
I know. I don't know that you can get much further apart than that. I mean, all the way from South Africa to Birmingham.
You know, military families obviously have to do this for big periods of time, but like living in a different place than your family, no matter the situation, it's got to be so hard.
And it was all about the health of the kids because the climate down there, and they had to, you know, Mabel had taken the boys up north. And of course, they were going to go back to see him, and that's what Tolkien mentions in this letter. And again, he just turned 4, and he writes, "I am so glad I am coming back to see you. It is such a long time since we came away from you. I hope the ship will bring us all back to you, Mammy and Baby and me. I've got such a big man now because I've got a man's coat. I walk every day and only ride in my mail cart a little bit. Your loving Ronald." And of course, the letter was never sent, as his mother, Mabel, received a telegram that same day telling her that her husband had hemorrhaged. And it just breaks my heart, the loss that Tolkien went through as such a young guy. I mean, 4 years old. And then, of course, it would only be, 8 years later when Mabel would die from complications of diabetes. Yeah.
It's wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, man, we kind of take for granted how instantaneous we can get in touch with our loved ones nowadays, you know, like
100%.
It's a wonderful development, you know, for all the things, you know, we complain about social media and like how that can have a negative impact, but there's also some pretty amazing and great things that we have access to nowadays. And one of them is staying in touch with people that, you know, obviously close family that anyone at any time would want to stay close to. But I mean, you know, think of how many more people we can stay in touch with from throughout our lives that we would have no idea. Like like I've stayed in touch with a college friend for 17 years via Facebook. And we just saw them for the first time when we were in Salt Lake City.
Did you finally delete your MySpace, Matt?
No. Dude, I was part of like the early birds on Facebook because originally, Alan, it was only for college students. Yeah. You had to have an EDU address to have it.
That's right.
You know this.
That's right. I do know that. Of course, I did not have one.
It was before all you old people got on there and made it less cool. Just saying.
Okay, fair enough.
But the point of my story is that I was able to keep in contact with this good friend through Facebook for 17 years. And we just saw them when we were out in Salt Lake City for the first time in 17 years. We got to
that's so cool. But yeah, you're right. I mean, this sort of distance, like having to send a letter halfway around the world.
How long would that even take, you know, to like get that letter? Like,
how long did it take Mabel and the boys to get back to Birmingham by ship?
Yeah.
From Bloemfontein.
I mean, they had telegrams, obviously, so they could do quicker that way, but
she'd gotten the telegram that very day.
Yeah.
It's so hard. I don't know whether I know these days, of course, Valentine's Day is a big commercial holiday and, you know, it's a sappy thing. I don't know 1896 whether that was a thing, but what a heartbreaking telegram to get on Valentine's Day that your husband, who is sick, has just had a brain hemorrhage and he's going to die. And then you have to figure out how to tell your 4-year-old son.
Yeah.
Man. You have better news for us, right, Matt? I mean, better things happen in the world of Tolkien around this time. Yeah.
Yes, we do. A number of years later, on February 14th, 1938, Tolkien gave a speech at the Lovelace Society. That was an essay club at Worcester College. That's in Oxford. He read a story called The Legend of Worming Hall. That story would become Farmer Giles of Ham, eventually published 11 years later in 1949.
Such a great story if you've never read it, by the way. Fantastic story. And it filled with philological humor. And I mean, it's such a good story.
Yeah.
Well, later that same week, and I'm not having to move years, right? This is still 1938. It's 3 days after he gave that speech. February 17th, Tolkien wrote letter number 23 to his publisher about Mr. Bliss, a short children's book that Tolkien wrote and illustrated. And it was shown to Allen and Unwin at the same time as The Hobbit had been submitted. So they knew about it. And in fact, they said they'd accept it if he could reduce the number of colors in his drawings. It was going to be too expensive to reproduce.
Yeah.
And interestingly, I think we mentioned this a month ago in This Week in Tolkien History, because the first letter about Mr. Bliss was sent to Allen and Unwin on January 17th. So I'm sure we did. A month later, though, where we are now, with the publisher still considering it, Tolkien wrote, "I wish you could find someone to redraw the pictures properly. I don't believe I am capable of it. I have at any rate no time now. It is easier to write a story at odd moments than draw, though neither are easy." And then he talks a little bit about The Lord of the Rings, which was, of course, still unnamed at that point, saying, "The Hobbit sequel is still where it was, and I have only the vaguest notions of how to proceed. Not ever intending any sequel, I fear I squandered all my favorite motifs and characters on the original Hobbit." And can we just say in hindsight how not true that is?
And the lie detector determined that was a lie. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe he did genuinely think that, though, but clearly he did not squander all his...
Clearly he was wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Good stuff, though.
So also on February 17th, but 7 years later in 1945, Tolkien writes to his son Christopher, first telling him about a really, really rough day that Tuesday, which would have been February 13th. It had been, as he called it, a day of drench. And what a day. He says, "I arrived to lecture soaked to skin, laden with a mass of wet fish, late and hot, and as I climbed onto the platform, my back stud burst, and my collar rode up under my ears, and the hall got slowly so dark I could not see. Not a happy occasion, and I needed the beer by 12. After yet another melancholy hour."
I needed the beer by 12.
Yes.
I'm just picturing this poor guy, right? I mean, wow. Smelling of fish, soaking wet.
Yeah.
His collar's popped
rough
up because something broke, and he's just, I needed the beer by 12.
Yeah. I'm gonna start using that. I need the beer by 12.
I needed the beer by 12. Yeah. It's that kind of day. Yeah.
So it's clearly one of those days.
Yeah.
He also had to go to an evening event where he'd been tabbed to propose a toast that he clearly did not want to do.
He probably never wanted to do that. Yeah.
He said that being tasked with that doomed him to indigestion.
Love how honest he is in these letters to his sons.
He's so honest. I love it.
It's great.
But fortunately, the drinks were flowing. He says there was a surprising lot of drink available, including a good deal of gin and it. And that's Italian vermouth. And yes, we did have to Google that.
Yeah.
So that when the time came, I had lost all fear. And after tracing the history of toasting from the Vikings downward, I proposed the health of the provincial in reasonably fluent Anglo-Saxon, which seemed to surprise him.
As it would surprise most people. I'd be pretty happy, though, if the professor toasted my health in fluent Anglo-Saxon.
Yeah, I love,
especially knowing that he was just a little buzzed.
Yeah, right?
All the liquid courage. That's great.
Isn't it a shame that they didn't, we're talking about technology. If they had cell phones back then, we'd have all kinds of clips
we'd have
of
pictures and we'd have,
That'd be on YouTube, baby.
It would. Absolutely would. And a hilarious little ending to that letter, too. He relates to Christopher. "Mother discovered her small daughter drawing. 'What are you drawing, darling?' said she. 'I am drawing God.' 'Oh, but you can't draw God, dear. Nobody knows what he's like.' 'Well, they will now.'" Oh, man. He knows how to tell a story. I love that.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I assume so. That's Priscilla, right?
Well, that's the thing.
Drawing that.
That's what I'm thinking. But it's funny that he doesn't say mother discovered Priscilla drawing. And I'm not sure if he means mother as in Edith or if he means a mother that he was sitting near. I have no idea who he's talking about. I included the sentence as it was in the book, but I'm actually not sure to whom he is referring here. In all fairness, but yes, I think he's talking about Priscilla, which is really hilarious and cute.
It is. That's great. All right, so going back to 1938, but moving forward to February 18th, Tolkien writes to Stanley Unwin, whose son Rayner had read the first chapter of what would become The Lord of the Rings and was delighted with it. Tolkien writes, "I am most grateful to your son Rayner and am encouraged. At the same time, I find it only too easy to write opening chapters. And for the moment, the story is not unfolding. I have unfortunately very little time, made shorter by a rather disastrous Christmas vacation. I squandered so much on the original Hobbit, which was not meant to have a sequel, that it is difficult to find anything new in that world.
Not easy to find anything new in that world. I mean,
yeah, right?
Come on. It's like what he said earlier.
I used it all. On the Hobbit. I've got nothing
Used
left.
it all my motifs and all my favorite characters. I got nothing new in that story. The lie detector says that's a lie. All right. Well,
clearly he had plenty left in the tank.
He clearly did. Now, since this segment is this week in Tolkien history, I get to look ahead one full week. So in this case to February 23rd, 1961, and a letter that a very angry Tolkien wrote to his publisher regarding the Swedish translation of The Lord of the Rings, specifically the introduction by the translator Åke Olmarks. He was steamed. I mean, steamed. Tolkien opens by saying, "I now enclose a copy and version of Olmark's nonsense in the hope that you may think it justifies my annoyance. I have not looked at his second outburst. I feel I cannot just now take anymore." He's so mad. Olmarks had written in the introduction that it is hard to believe that the deep-rooted, native-born hobbit from Middle South England would feel very much at home in Leeds. Inauguration into the Anglo-Saxon chair in Oxford was for him like coming home again from a trial expedition up to the distant Fornost. Well, Tolkien calls this presumptuous impertinence. I mean, what a way with words. And he talks about how he was devoted to Leeds. They were good to him. The school was good to him. The kids there were good to him. And if this were to come to the attention of Leeds, Tolkien said it would give offense and Olmarks would have to publicly apologize. But here's another one. Olmarks had also claimed the professor began by telling tales about it, Middle-earth, to his children, then to his grandchildren, and they were fascinated and clamored for more and still more. Tolkien does something I don't see very often. He begins his commentary with double exclamation marks. And then he writes, "This is such outrageous nonsense that I should suspect mockery if I did not observe that Olmarks is ever ready to assume intimate knowledge that he has not got. I have only two grandchildren, one 18 who first heard of the book 5 years ago. The other is only 2.
Oh my God.
So he's making stuff up. Yeah. Now, here's the thing, though. If you've ever heard from this letter, and I'm actually pretty sure you have because there's a famous quote from it, it is this next annoyance that you've likely heard. Olmarks had argued that the ring is, in a certain way, der Nibelungen. That's the ring in Wagner's Ring Cycle. And Tolkien famously commented, "Both rings were round, and there the resemblance ceases." You've heard that line, right?
I think I have. Yeah.
I mean, it's because everybody goes, "Oh, Tolkien's ring, Wagner's ring." Both rings were round, and there the resemblance ceases. That was Tolkien's word on it. We're done. Yeah.
Yeah. And this sort of commentary wouldn't be complete without some sort of political allegory. Olmark says, here in Mordor rules the personification of satanic might, Sauron. Read perhaps in the same partial fashion, Stalin.
Stalin. Oh, of course. Somebody had to think Sauron was Stalin.
Yes. And Tolkien was having none of it.
Nope.
He says, I utterly repudiate any such reading, in quotes. Reading
air quotes, I know.
Yes, which angers me. The situation was conceived long before the Russian Revolution. Such allegory is entirely foreign to my thought. The placing of Mordor in the east was due to simple narrative and geographical necessity within my mythology. The original stronghold of evil was, as traditionally, in the north, but as that had been destroyed and was indeed under the sea, there had to be a new stronghold, far removed from the Valar, the elves, and the sea power of Numenor.
Exactly. It's got nothing to do with the East in the primary world, and it certainly doesn't have anything to do with Stalin. Well, finally, the last little bit of This Week in Tolkien History, we're actually going to shift gears a little bit and make an adaptation connection. Normally, we stick just with biographical stuff, but This Week in Tolkien History on February 22nd, just 21 years ago, at the Screen Actors Guild Awards in 2004, The Return of the King won for Outstanding Performance by a Cast, and the award was accepted by the late Barnard Hill.
That is often my answer to my favorite character from the films.
Is Theoden. Barnard Hill.
He's so good.
Such a fantastic role. And he brought that to life really incredibly well.
Yeah.
I may not have liked the whole exorcism concept, but that wasn't him. I don't blame him for that.
No, the effects were amazing on
They
that.
really were.
Like how they filmed that and everything, changing him from old to young was just
that was
wild.
cool.
Especially
Especially back then.
Mostly,
it was really advanced.
The fact
for
that is
time.
mostly in camera is wild,
isn't it? I know, that's wild stuff.
But yeah, no, Bernard Hill, man,
such a good job.
Possibly my favorite performance in a film full of amazing performances.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, the film was full of incredible work by the cast, but I felt the emotion of so many of his moments. So
it helps.
strongly.
He gets to steal a lot of Éomer's lines from the books.
That's true. That's true.
It's like all of Éomer's best lines.
That's fair.
Given to Theoden, which helps.
Yeah, it does help.
But man, yeah, I gotta say, like, it felt so right when at the end of War of the Rohirrim, I don't know if you caught this when you were watching, but in the credits, it has a dedication to Bernard Hill.
Yes, I did catch that.
Which is awesome. It's also even more poignant is that I was interviewing Doug Adams, who wrote the music of the Lord of the Rings trilogy book and worked very closely with Howard Shore for both trilogies, and revealed that Theoden actually doesn't have his own theme.
You're right.
Like, there is not a theme for the character of Theoden, and his theme is the Rohan theme.
Yes, it is.
Which is pretty awesome.
Well, that is some good stuff. That's what has been happening in This Week in Tolkien History. But this week in Prancing Pony Podcast History, we're going to be wrapping up the story of Cirion Eorl. Matt, would you take the first reading in the Tradition of Isildur?
Yes, the Tradition of Isildur. It is said that when Isildur returned from the War of the Last Alliance, he remained for a time in Gondor, ordering the realm and instructing Meneldil, his nephew, before he himself departed to take up the kingship of Arnor. With Meneldil and a company of trusted friends, he made a journey about the borders of all the lands to which Gondor laid claim. And as they were returning from the northern bound to Anorion, they came to the high hill that was then called Elenir, but was afterwards called Amon Anwar, Hill of Awe. That was near to the center of the lands of Gondor. They made a path through the dense woods of its northward slopes, and so came to its summit, which was green and treeless. There they made a level space, and at its eastward end they raised a mound. Within the mound Isildur laid a casket that he bore with him. Then he said, "This is a tomb and memorial of Elendil the Faithful. Here it shall stand at the midpoint of the kingdom of the south, in the keeping of the Valar, while the kingdom endures. And this place shall be a hallow that none shall profane. Let no man disturb its silence and peace, unless he be an heir of Elendil."
Well, I guess that lets me and you out.
Yep, sure does. We are not tall enough to be an heir of Elendil, that's for sure.
No, that's definitely for sure. Now, this final section of Cirion Eorl, this entire episode, is entirely about the tradition of Isildur. And so we start with a look back at the very short time when Isildur was king, right after the last alliance.
Yeah, the text here says that he stayed in Gondor after the war for a time, getting everything in order. And he's also mentoring Meneldil at this time. That's the son of his brother Anarion. And he's already here, he's planning to hand the rule in Gondor over to him when Isildur would then take Elendil's throne in Arnor.
Exactly. And let's take a closer look at that in The Disaster of the Gladden Fields, right here in Unfinished Tales, a story that we'll get to next season. And there we read this in the first paragraph. After the fall of Sauron, Isildur, the son and heir of Elendil, returned to Gondor. There he assumed the Elendilmere as king of Arnor, and proclaimed his sovereign lordship over all the Dunedain in the north and in the south, for he was a man of great pride and vigor. He remained for a year in Gondor, restoring its order and defining its bounds. But the greater part of the army of Arnor returned to Eriador by the Númenorian road from the fords of Isen to Fornost.
Now, this part about restoring its order and defining its bounds points directly to the moment here in Cirion and Eorl.
That's right.
In fact, the footnote to it explicitly says that,
Yeah.
as is related in the tale of Cirion and Eorl, drawing on older histories, now mostly lost, for its account of the events that led to the Oath of Eorl and the alliance of Gondor with the Rohirrim.
I love that. The reference to Cirion and Eorl is in the footnote in the Disaster of the Gladden Fields.
Yeah.
Now, later, after Isildur makes his decision to go north with a detour to Rivendell to pick up his wife and youngest son, Meneldil, he heads out. So it was, as is told in the legends of later days, that the second year of the Third Age was waning when Isildur set forth from Osgiliath early in Ivanneth, expecting to reach Imladris in 40 days by mid-Narbaleth, ere winter drew nigh in the north. At the east gate of the bridge on a bright morning, Meneldil bade him farewell. Go now with good speed, and may the sun of your setting out not cease to shine on your road. Now, just a couple of quick things to point out here to give you a bit more flavor on what's happening. Isildur is said to leave early in Ivanneth. That's the Sindarin name for the month of Yavanye, which corresponds to August 23rd to September 21st.
Yeah, the footnote actually says it's Yavanye 5, so August 27th or so.
Mm-hmm.
The text also says he expects to reach Rivendell by mid-Narbaleth. That would be the month of Narquelier, September 22nd to October 21st. So mid-Narbaleth would be about October 6th.
That was the plan. Of course, that plan went awry, but you'll need to come back next season for the full story of the Disaster of the Gladden Fields.
Spoiler alert, it does not go well.
That's why it's called the Disaster of the Gladden Fields, Matt, and not the really cool things that happen in the Gladden Fields. The celebration of the Gladden Fields.
The delightful
the party
picnic of the Gladden Fields.
Yeah, no, it's the disaster for a reason, Matt.
We also get a tiny bit about Meneldil in a footnote here, which starts by reminding us that Meneldil was the nephew of Isildur, son of Isildur's younger brother Anarion, slain in the siege of Barad-dûr. The note also explains that Isildur has, at this point, established Meneldil as king of Gondor.
You know, we keep mentioning Meneldil's name, and I don't know about you, Matt. This keeps bringing to mind all those memes about, is this a name from the Lord of the Rings, or is this the name of a pharmaceutical? I mean, Meneldil sounds so much more like a medication than a king of Gondor, right? I mean, side effects of Meneldil could include, it's just talk to your doctor to see if Meneldil is right for you.
That's the line I was looking for. I was like, yeah. What's a typical thing that's in all the ads? And that's the one.
That's right. I mean, wow. It's there are some other names like that, but Meneldil is definitely one of them. Yeah. And speaking of kind of, not so kind things, I mean, comparing to medication is one thing. That same footnote has something sort of unkind to say about him. Sure, he was a man of courtesy, but far-seeing, and he did not reveal his thoughts. Okay, I don't see a problem with that. I mean, Cirion kept his own counsel, right? And he goes back, and nobody gives him a hard time that, he didn't talk about what he was going to do to reward Eorl. But relevant to this story, we read this little bit. He was, in fact, well pleased by the departure of Isildur and his sons, and hoped that affairs in the north would keep them long occupied. In other words, I kind of like being the king. Y'all don't have to come back.
Christopher Tolkien adds that some unpublished stories, which he would later publish in History of Middle-earth, state that he was Anarion's fourth child, born in 3318 of the Second Age, right, making him 22 at the time of his father's death and 24 now in the story.
Okay. We also learn, interestingly, just kind of as an aside, that Meneldil was the last man to be born in Númenor. He was a baby of about a year when he was carried on his father's ship to escape the downfall. Now, going back to the text in Cirion and Eorl, we're leaving the Disaster of the Gladden Fields now. We now have a lot more context for this bit about how Isildur took Meneldil and a company of trusted friends on a road trip around the borders of his country.
And it's on that trip, as they're making their way back from the northern borders, that they come to the Hill of Awe. Mm-hmm. And of course, it's not the Hill of Awe just yet, as we've noted a couple times here.
Exactly. There's no reason for it to be the Hill of Awe. Now, if they find kittens on top, it's the Hill of Awe. Oh. Sorry.
Good joke, Dad.
So anyway... All right. So last week, of course, we mentioned its earlier name, and it's not Hill of Awe. It's Eilunir. We learn in the footnote here that that was a name of pre-Numenorian origin, evidently related to Eilonach. And in The Nature of Middle-earth, in the essay on the rivers and beacon hills of Gondor, and no, we're not done with that yet, we read a bit further, probably an alien name, not Sindarin, Numenorian, or common speech. In true Sindarin, Aelin could only be derived from Elien, Alien, and would normally be written Eilien. So clearly not the same origin.
These two mountains, Eilonir and Eilonach, are the only names of the Beacon Hills that Tolkien says are certainly pre-Numenorian. But Eilonach, the second of the 7 Beacon Hills to the west of Amundine, was the only one to keep its pre-Numenorian name, as Eilonir was changed to Amon Anwar in Gondor after this, and eventually became known as Hallofirin to the Rohirrim.
Of course, then we get the telling mention in the narrative that this hill was near to the center of the lands of Gondor. More on this in a second, but of course, we've also talked about that from a map perspective. We described exactly where it fell and why that was at the time the center of, or at least as close to the center of the lands of Gondor as you could get. They make their way up to the summit, and we see that it's a lot like what we looked at last week. It's green and treeless, just turf. But apparently, it wasn't level at the time because Isildur and his entourage made a level space before raising a mound and placing Elendil's casket in that mound. And I can't help but think that if they made a level space and it's all turf, that they probably played a game of football while they were up there.
What kind of football do you mean, though? Do you mean like the British football?
Proper
like...
English football. Yeah, I don't mean, they didn't bring any pads, so they're just kicking a football around, a soccer ball, you know.
I'm not a big soccer guy.
Wow. Okay, so they couldn't have been playing, you know.
Sorry, guys.
All right. Now, here's the thing. Notice that when they talk about this mountaintop at the time, it doesn't look exactly like it looks earlier in the story, which is later in time, right? When we get to Cirion and Eorl actually up there. Not only was it not level, so they had to make a level space, there's no mention of alfirin. But recall what Gandalf said when he, along with Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, was approaching Edoras. At the foot of the walled hill, the way ran under the shadow of many mounds, high and green. Upon their western sides, the grass was white as with a drifted snow. Small flowers sprang there like countless stars amid the turf. "Look," said Gandalf, "how fair are the bright eyes in the grass. Evermind they are called, symbol Mirna in this land of men, for they blossom in all the seasons of the year and grow where dead men rest." So, it's no surprise that there's no alfirin, no Evermind here just yet, because there's no dead men resting here yet.
No dead people. Yeah. Isildur then makes his declaration and hallows the peak of this hill. He reiterates that this spot is the midpoint of the Kingdom of Gondor, and he also says a couple things that are echoed later in Cirion's oath that we read last week.
That's right. Specifically, naming Elendil the Faithful, Elendil Verondo, as Cirion said, and placing the location in the keeping of the Valar.
He also makes it clear this is not a place for anyone to visit.
No.
No one should come here ever. Except for the heirs of Elendil.
And we will get all rules lawyery about what that means right after the break. Now, soon we'll get back to Isildur's instructions, but before we do, we want to remind you that there's a lot more talk going on at the Prancing Pony podcast than just us.
The PPP has an amazing listener community. They're always coming up with great questions and discussions across all our social media spaces. Check out our common room on Facebook, our dedicated subreddit, Twitter, and more.
Now on Facebook, just look for the Prancing Pony podcast. Follow the page to get the news, but you're going to want to join the group to get involved in those great discussions.
Or if you prefer Reddit, find us there at r/PrancingPonyPod. On Twitter and Instagram, we're simply at PrancingPonyPod.
And if you want daily Tolkien content, check out Today's Tolkien Times on YouTube and all your favorite podcast apps. It's my short format daily show. I've got everything from Word Nerd Wednesdays to First Age Fridays. Be sure to check it out at youtube.com/@TolkienTimes and follow @TolkienTimes on all your social media.
All right, Alan, what say we get back to the lands of Gondor?
I think we should, or well, the lands that are about to not be Gondor anymore, right?
Well, yeah, the timeline's a little fuzzy. We're skipping back and forth a bit.
That's fair. They made a stone stair from the fringe of the woods up to the crown of the hill, and Isildur said, "Up this stair let no man climb save the king, and those that he brings with him, if he bids them follow him." Then all those present were sworn to secrecy, but Isildur gave this counsel to Meneldil, that the king should visit the hallow from time to time, and especially when he felt the need of wisdom in days of danger or distress. And thither also he should bring his heir when he was full grown to manhood, and tell him of the making of the hallow, and reveal to him the secrets of the realm and other matters that he should know. Meneldil followed Isildur's counsel and all the kings that came after him, until Romendikil I, the fifth after Meneldil. In his time, Gondor was first assailed by Easterlings, and lest the tradition should be broken because of war or sudden death or other misfortune, he caused the tradition of Isildur to be set down in a sealed scroll, together with other things that a new king should know. And this scroll was delivered by the steward to the king before his crowning. This delivery was from then onwards always performed, though the custom of visiting the hallow of Amon Anwar with his heir was maintained by nearly all the kings of Gondor.
All right, so we start this section with the building of the stone stair. Now, this is the same one that Cirion told his most trusted servants about here on the show a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
You will come at length to the end of the trees and find a stone stair that leads on upwards.
And it's the same stair that they came back to again 3 months later with Eorl and his entourage. They came at last to the upper slopes of the hill and passed through a belt of white birches and saw the stone stair going up to the summit.
And Isildur, in keeping with his earlier command that no one disturb the silence and peace of the hallow, has a similar command about the stairs. No one should climb these stairs except the king and anyone the king brings with him.
And that's when we learned the first rule about the tomb of Elendil. Don't talk about the tomb of Elendil.
That's right. But you can bring a +1, apparently.
Well, and you should bring a +1 when it's your heir, but we'll get to that.
That's right. Now, since the kings are allowed to go up, but the place is sacred, it's reasonable for someone following in Isildur's footsteps to wonder exactly when he's supposed to come up here.
Right.
Is this like kind of the Meneldil in Numenor, where the king would lead the people up 3 times a year?
Right.
Is this something the king should only visit in particular circumstances?
Yeah.
Is it on the anniversary of things?
Exactly.
Like, what do we got
I come on a particular date? Do I come when an event takes place?
If you see your shadow, is there more winter?
Do we come up here to see if winter's going to be too long? Right. So Isildur gives his successor some advice. Come here from time to time. Thanks a lot, Uncle.
Yes,
that's still pretty
very
vague.
specific.
What do you mean from time to time? It's an occasional thing, right? It doesn't have to be every year, and it's not bound to a particular date, right? So it doesn't have to be like on the anniversary of or anything like that. It's just from time to time, but come particularly when you need wisdom, which for us, Matt, would be like every other day. Yeah. So I don't know how often. We just have to live there.
Yeah.
When you need wisdom, when you're stressed or the kingdom is in danger. And I like this. There's a bit of maybe Elendil will speak to me, right? And I love that because it really, really fits with what we read about this place long before we knew what was up here. Remember a few weeks ago that in the wood beneath the summit, there lay a silence, and a man would find himself speaking to his comrades in a whisper, as if he expected to hear the echo of a great voice that called from far away and long. And really above your heads, because he was like 8 feet tall.
Yeah, because he's a very tall guy.
Yeah.
And also be sure to come here with your heir when he is old enough and tell him what happened here today.
That's right.
And also use that time and the significance of this place to discuss the secrets of the realm.
Okay.
Now, the big question is, what
are those
the
secrets of the realm? Huh? I mean, they're secrets, so I guess we don't know. They were never written down, but
they don't put them in the archives at Minas Tirith.
Is this like, here's the master password to the password manager?
Yeah, it's the password. The password is password.
Right.
Spoiler alert.
Password 123.
Yeah.
It's 1234 1234, don't you know? I mean, come on. That's got to be what the password is. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what are some of the secrets of the realm? Do they have dirt on the council members?
Right? Oh my gosh.
No, I really don't know what sort of thing that they would keep from their heir until such a special moment, but there's got to be something. Area 51?
Mithrandir came in a meteor.
No, Mithrandir did not show up in a meteor. Wrong
That
show.
wasn't the secret. That wasn't the secret. Oh man.
Man. No, I can't believe you even brought that in. Yeah. That was well done, though. Actually, it was really well done. Yeah.
I don't know what kind of secrets do rulers typically keep? They don't have nuclear codes here,
no,
Alan.
They do not have nuclear codes. That's fair. There are, everything that we read about is written down in the histories, so it's all just speculation. But, maybe just some advice, too, like what it's going to be like to rule the kingdom. But, maybe it's...
maybe it's like, oh, by the way, this is a weak spot in the geography of our defenses.
Exactly.
We don't want to tell people about it, but you should know.
You should know. That's right. And definitely some sort of Area 51 equivalent. But yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know what the secrets
Aliens are back.
There we go. All right.
So Meneldil, even though he was pretty happy to have Isildur leave, still followed his advice and brought his son Kemendur here.
Mm-hmm. And that tradition was followed by all the kings through Romendikil I. He took the throne in Third Age 492, so almost 500 years. But at that time, there was a threat to Gondor in the form of the Easterlings.
Yeah, and back when you and Don were covering the history of Gondor, you read that bit in the appendices where it says, it was Ostoher, the seventh king, who rebuilt Minas Anor, where afterwards the kings dwelt in summer rather than Osgiliath. In his time, Gondor was first attacked by wild men out of the east, but Tarostar, his son, defeated them and drove them out, and took the name of Romendikil, East Victor.
That's right. But then remember the tradition that we were told about when we covered Ondaher and his death in battle with the Wain Riders. This had always been the custom of Gondor, that the king, if he willed, should command his army in a major battle, provided that an heir with undisputed claim to the throne was left behind.
So we have a new threat, the first significant threat to Gondor since this moment here with Isildur beginning this tradition. Since the king's death could cause a break in this tradition of Isildur, Romendikil had this previously oral-only tradition written down on a scroll.
Pretty wise, seeing as how he himself was later slain in battle with fresh hordes of Easterlings.
Yeah.
Now, fortunately, his son Turambar was already 144 at the time of Romendikil's death. He'd already presumably been brought here and given the secrets of the realm by his father.
Yeah, I would think so. Still, knowing that this could happen with an heir that might be too young to have had this taken place, Romendikil wisely has this written down and sealed. The scroll would be handed to a new king right before he was crowned.
Crowned by the steward. And it's the footnote to this that reminds us that it was also Romendikil, very forward-thinking of him, who established the office of steward. But this was long before the stewardship of the House of Hurin and the hereditary nature of the stewardship.
We also learn the qualifications of steward at the time this office was established, a man of high trust and wisdom, and that he was usually older because he wasn't allowed to go to war or even travel outside of Gondor. Kind of like how Alan.
Yeah, I knew there was something coming. Usually older. I'm like, oh man, why did I let him say that? Yeah. I just knew. I'm like, oh no,
man,
no. Yeah, he was usually older, Matt.
But he was wise. Just
That's
like
right.
you, Alan.
And
wise.
He wasn't allowed to travel outside of Gondor. I'm not there yet. I am allowed to travel. They haven't taken away my passport.
They even let you drive sometimes, I've heard.
Wow. Yeah, I guess if I take my medication. Thanks a lot, Matt. Tolkien adds that the steward was never a member of the royal house, and that makes a lot of sense, right? Given his proximity to the throne and the influence that he would wield, that creates a situation where you could have a conflict of interest. So,
with this written safeguard in place, future kings still visited the hallow with their heirs, but not all of them. The text says nearly all the kings of Gondor did this. And this immediately makes one wonder which ones didn't.
Right.
Yeah. Tyrannon Falastur was the first childless king, so he didn't even have an heir to take up there, so
That's fair.
he's one that would not have.
Probably not. And of course, he was married. By the way, do you remember who his wife is, who the wife of Tyrannon Falastur was?
Was it Baruthiel?
Barrow-wight, yes. Yeah. Crazy cat lady. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was her for sure.
Loveless marriage there.
Loveless marriage and childless marriage. And again, that's probably what you get when you marry somebody who was a Black Numenorian. I mean, what are you doing, man? Anyway, I'm going to say other kings that didn't do it, probably Atanatar II Alcaran, right? The glorious, the guy that, precious stones are like pebbles in Gondor for children to play with. He enjoyed living in ease and splendor. And it was during his reign that the Watch in Mordor was neglected. So he was probably too lazy to go. I would also add probably his two slacker sons, right? Narmakil and Calmakil. Narmakil inherited the throne as the elder son, but died without an heir after a 68-year reign. So he didn't have an heir to take up. And his brother inherited the throne. He only ruled for 10 years before he died.
Wow. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I guess.
Those three kings were not great.
Yeah. But his son, Minalcar, I would bet reestablished this tradition.
Yeah.
He was the one who essentially ruled Gondor as its regent for 60 years or so before becoming King Romendakil II.
That's right. He was the one who had the Argonath built. Now,
that's right.
I would say there's probably one other king that is pretty easy to say he didn't go up here. Castamir the Usurper. He had a short 10-year reign. Pretty sure he didn't care about going up to this spot. He probably didn't even know it existed because nobody told him. Right. Why would they? Why would they give him any of the secrets of the realm? Right.
Either that or he goes up there and he just hears Elendil whisper, "Go away." But Telimnar probably never had time. He'd only been king for 2 years when the plague wiped out his whole family.
Yeah, so he didn't really get a lot of time to take a vacation up there. And then Earnur, right? The very last one. He didn't even have an heir to take up. So he didn't go. He was too busy trying to, let me at him. I want to go get him. The Witch King, he keeps calling me chicken. I got to go.
Right?
Yeah. Earnur was way too busy to, actually make his way to the tradition of Isildur. All right. Well, Matt, I'd like to have you continue. Pick up the story where we left off, if you would.
All right, let's do it. When the days of the kings came to an end, and Gondor was ruled by the Stewards descended from Hurin, the steward of King Meneldil, it was held that all the rights and duties of the kings were theirs until the great king returns. But in the matter of the tradition of Isildur, they alone were the judges, since it was known only to them. They judged that by the words, "an heir of Elendil," Isildur had meant one of the royal line descended from Elendil, who had inherited the throne, but that he did not foresee the rule of the stewards. If then Mardil had exercised the authority of the king in his absence, the heirs of Mardil, who had inherited the stewardship, had the right and duty until a king returned. Each steward therefore had the right to visit the hallow when he would, and to admit to it those who came with him, as he thought fit. As for the words, "while the kingdom endures," they said that Gondor remained a kingdom ruled by a vice-regent, and that the words must therefore be held to mean as long as the state of Gondor endures. Nonetheless, the stewards, partly from awe and partly from the cares of the kingdom, went very seldom to the hallow on the hill of Anwar, except when they took their heir to the hilltop, according to the custom of the kings. Sometimes it remained for several years unvisited, and as Isildur had prayed, it was in the keeping of the Valar. For though the woods might grow tangled and be avoided by men because of the silence, so that the upward path was lost, still when the way was reopened, the hallow was found unweathered and unprofaned, evergreen and at peace under the sky, until the kingdom of Gondor was changed.
All right, then. Well, getting back to the beginning of the passage that you read, right? We were talking about the days of the kings coming to an end. Look, folks, you already know the line of kings ended, right? Ondahir dies along with all of his sons, the two of them. Gondor needed to choose a new line, but instead of uniting the realms and having Arvedwi come down from Arthedain to become king, they choose the victorious captain Eärnil. He was also descended from a king, so that's fine. But his son Eärnur was, well, let's just say he was stronger than he was wise, right? He goes off to single combat with the Witch King without leaving an heir, so no more kings.
Yeah, so Gondor came under the rule of the Stewards, and you guys already covered the House of the Stewards several episodes back with Don Marshall. So it suffices to say that the text here about the Stewards descended from Hurin, the steward of King Meneldil, references the hereditary nature of the stewardship once Meneldil chose his kinsman, Hurin of Emin Arnen, to be his steward.
Now, that choice of Hurin by Meneldil would have been made sometime between Third Age 1621 and 1634. Those are the years of Meneldil's reign. But it would be more than 400 years after Hurin's stewardship before his descendants in the House of Hurin became the ruling stewards after Eärnur's disappearance and presumed death.
And the first ruling steward is named here in the passage, Mardil.
Right.
But before we get the mention of his name, we get an explanation about how the rights of the kings are in the hands of the stewards until the king returns.
It's really interesting. We get very rules lawyery,
Yes.
Interpreting things. This is really interesting stuff. But of course, they realize they're the only ones who could decide about the tradition of Isildur because nobody else knew. So they couldn't discuss this with the council. They couldn't discuss this with the other nobles in Gondor. They're sort of in between a rock and a hard place. There's nobody that they can bounce these ideas off of because they're sworn to secrecy, but they're also not the king. So they got to figure out, what are they going to do?
Yeah. And we get a good look at their explanation, or if you disagree with them, maybe you'd call it a rationalization, as to why they can take part in this. They interpreted Isildur's words, an heir of Elendil, correctly, if even a bit narrowly. Royal descent, yes, but also who had inherited the throne. So even an heir who was, let's say, second or third in line would not count.
Right. So where does that leave the stewards? Well, they figured that Isildur had not, and indeed could not, have predicted that the line of kings would end and that Gondor would be ruled by the House of the Stewards. Well, should he have been able to predict that? I mean, could he have? But what if he meant this literally, right? What if he really means only heirs of Elendil? And the minute that Elendil's line fails, nobody should
go up there.
I mean, they're really giving themselves the right. It's interesting. They argue and give themselves the right to do it, and then they don't go. Except when they have to, right? But
and then, if that was the case, then Elendil's tomb would still be up there.
Yeah, it would still be up there.
Cirion would never have moved it.
No, they would have done the oath some other place.
So then Elendil would kind of be living in Rohan, or be resting in Rohan,
Yeah, right there.
Which would be kind of weird.
Yeah.
He'd be right on the border, but it's like,
it's just an interesting thing. Like, what should they have done? What would a more, conservative steward have done? Like, oh, I don't have the right to do this,
Yeah.
But I suppose that for generations now, the stewards have been, ruling when the kings are gone, right? When a king is out of town, the steward is ruling in the king's stead, in their name, and doing the things that they're supposed to. So I don't know. It's really interesting. So enter Mardil Voronoi, right? I mean, that's...
Yeah.
So first, let's note his epithet, right? It means the steadfast. And we just saw this word recently in Cirion's oath, Ar Elendil Vorondo Voronoi, which meant, and of the faith of Elendil the faithful.
Since he had all the powers of the king and fulfilled the king's duties in his absence, and since the stewards rule in hereditary fashion, i.e. a line of pseudo-royal descent, Mardil's heirs would have the same rights and duties that the king would have.
So that would mean that an heir of Mardil who had inherited the white staff, because remember, you were only an heir of Elendil, not just if you were descended from Elendil, but if you were descended from Elendil and took the throne. So an heir of Mardil would be somebody who was not only a descendant of Mardil, but had inherited the white staff. Therefore, they would have the right to go here to the hallow and the duty to pass on knowledge of the hallow in that story to his heir, and so on. But then they also do interpret another phrase, and it's an important one, while the kingdom endures.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is a bit easier, right? As long as it is a kingdom, even if it's not
Mhm.
ruled by a king, that makes sense. So
Yeah.
they're interpreting it to mean that as long as the nation of Gondor exists, well, I suppose really as long as the nation in its current government form, right? If for some reason
Yeah.
Gondor decided to become a democracy and there's no more king, then something has to happen with the Hallow. But for now, as long as the nation stays what it is, the stewards can go.
Yeah. Just because they could didn't mean that they did, though.
Exactly. Right.
Sure, they still came when they were required to take their heir up there and initiate them into the tradition of Isildur. But for a couple reasons, they just didn't go more than that. The text says it was partly from awe and partly because they were too busy ruling Gondor.
Got a job to do, man. Yeah.
Right, yeah. I mean, you're the ruling steward. It's like you don't have a steward.
That's the
You know,
thing.
the
We
steward's
never read about
assistant.
that. Do they have
who-
stewards?
That's a good
or
question, right? Like
steward assistants.
Who's next up?
Yeah,
Who's the
because
speaker of the house there? What is that?
Who's in charge? Right. I mean, we just read about how the stewards of the kings were in charge. The stewards were not allowed to travel outside of Gondor.
Yeah.
And they were usually older because they weren't allowed to go to war. Well, now that the stewards are taking the place of the kings, they have to go, right? They have to lead just like a king would. So they've got to have somebody. I mean, I guess the council rules maybe in their stead, the entirety of the council. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
It's an interesting question. There's certainly nothing in any of the stories.
Yeah, there's. I was gonna say it's pure hypothesis at this point.
Do we have
the assistant to the steward?
Steward JG, junior grade? Do we have, I don't know. It's a really interesting question. There's got to be some sort of structure in place because
surely,
clearly a steward would then lead.
I mean, Cirion was in battle,
Right. Cirion was in battle. He was gone for weeks, in dealing with this. So it's an interesting question. It also was a long journey for Minas Tirith. I mean, sure, it was just as long a journey for the kings, but I mean, they're gone for so long. If they were to come here, it would be at least a couple of weeks, even if they were just to come here,
right,
and spend a day, camp on the hilltop.
I mean, unless they're like booking it, in a rush. But
it's just wild. I don't know. Interesting
like,
question, though.
I'll be back in a week or so, and
I'm sure nothing will go wrong.
Where it's like,
man, I can't leave for an hour without something burning down around me.
Especially if it's a secret. It's like, where are you going? I can't tell you that.
Yeah, I can't. I absolutely can't.
I'm just going to be gone for a week. Don't worry about it.
Wow. Yeah. Things we can't say for 500. I'm just going to be gone for a week and I can't tell you where. Yeah. I'm sure my kids will be like, you're doing what now? All right. Well, because they only went when they had to, or rarely went except then, it would become years between visits. And so you'd think that the place would get all weedy and overgrown.
Yeah. But no, Isildur's prayer that this place would be cared for and watched over by the Valar, recall it said, "Here it shall stand in the keeping of the Valar while the kingdom endures." Well, that was answered, apparently.
Yeah, it was answered. The Valar sent their groundskeeping Maya to tend to the place, it seems. Even though the trees would grow and block the path up to the hilltop, the Hallow itself was always untouched and looked like it had been freshly mowed.
Nice and manicured lawn. Yeah.
I know. I'm so tempted to just get up there and kick a ball around.
Of course, that is until the kingdom of Gondor was changed. And for more on that, well, you'll have to stick around after the break.
Yep, absolutely. Now, folks, if you're enjoying the PPP, please consider supporting the show by joining the Fellowship of the Podcast. It's what gives me the time and resources to work on making this show better every season. When you join, you get the best Discord community around. That includes live episode recordings and hangouts every month. We actually just did a hangout, and this is a live episode recording. You also get episode postscripts, ad-free episodes, free merch, and more.
You can also become part of our Questions After Nightfall episodes, or even join us as a guest in the North Wing. So please go to patreon.com/prancingponypod to show your support and join the Fellowship of the Podcast.
And you can also help us out by giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and a rating over on Spotify. And please recommend us to your friends.
All right, we've got one last reading for Cirion and Eorl. Alan, take it away.
All right, I'll close this out. For it came to pass that Cirion, the 12th of the ruling stewards, was faced by a new and great danger. Invaders threatened the conquest of all the lands of Gondor north of the White Mountains. And if that were to happen, the downfall and destruction of the whole kingdom must soon follow. As is known in the histories, this peril was averted only by the aid of the Rohirrim, and to them Cirion, with great wisdom, granted all the northern lands, save Anorion, to be under their own rule and king, though in perpetual alliance with Gondor. There were no longer sufficient men in the realm to people the northward region, nor even to maintain in force the line of forts along the Anduin that had guarded its eastward boundary. Cirion gave long thought to this matter before he granted Calenarthon to the horsemen of the north, and he judged that its cession must change wholly the tradition of Isildur with regard to the hallow of Amon Anwar. To that place he brought the lord of the Rohirrim, and there by the mound of Elendil he, with the greatest solemnity, took the oath of Eorl, and was answered by the oath of Cirion, confirming forever the alliance of the kingdoms of the Rohirrim and of Gondor. But when this was done, and Eorl had returned to the north to bring back all his people to their new dwelling, Cirion removed the tomb of Elendil, for he judged that the tradition of Isildur was now made void. The hallow was no longer at the midpoint of the kingdom of the south, but on the borders of another realm. And, moreover, the words, "while the kingdom endures," referred to the kingdom as it was when Isildur spoke, after surveying its bounds and defining them. It was true that other parts of the kingdom had been lost since that day. Minas Ithil was in the hands of the Nazgul, and Ithilien was desolate, but Gondor had not relinquished its claim to them. Calenarthon it had resigned forever under oath. The casket, therefore, that Isildur had set within the mound, Cirion removed to the hallows of Minas Tirith. But the green mound remained as the memorial of a memorial. Nonetheless, even when it had become the site of a great beacon, the hill of Anwar was still a place of reverence to Gondor and to the Rohirrim, who named it in their own tongue Hallow, the Holy Mount.
And that's where we fast forward from the early stewards to where we started this story. Cirion and the threat he faced from the Balcoth/Wain Riders/Easterlings.
Whatever they're called.
Yeah.
And we're reminded of the genuinely existential nature of this threat. Had the Balcoth been successful in their invasion of Calenarthon and Anorion, that's the lands of Gondor north of the White Mountains that the text mentions, the rest of Gondor would be next. This was a huge threat. I mean, look, Gondor has faced threats before. The Corsair raids along the coast are not, a small problem, but
right,
they're not really an existential problem. Corsairs aren't coming to take the land.
Mm-hmm.
The Balcoth are coming to occupy and then to destroy what's left.
Yeah. I mean, we see them, occupy Rovanion for 40 plus years.
Generations, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. If they get themselves established in Calenarthon and take over that region, okay, fine, you've lost some land. No, what you now have is a foe that wants to wipe you out, that's now sitting there in peace, growing and growing and getting stronger. When they get strong enough, they're going to come down and wipe you out.
Yeah. Not great. So then in the text here, we're given the summary of, the last few episodes, really. We've got Cirion's foresight in asking Eorl and the Eotheod to come to their aid and giving them Calenarthon as a free gift, but with an eternal alliance.
I love that. And, we already talked at length about how Cirion had thought through this whole matter, right? His geopolitical wisdom in bringing an allied people down here, giving sort of a win-win, because remember, they were in dire straits up there. They had too many numbers. The land wasn't fertile enough. They needed to move. Gondor needed an ally nearby. They wanted their friends closer. So, it was a real win-win. Cirion's a thoughtful guy. He thinks this stuff through. And here, he was also forward-thinking about how the gift of Calenarthon would impact the tradition of Isildur.
Yeah. And he knew before he gave Calenarthon to Eorl and his people that it would completely change this tradition of Isildur.
That's right. And it even seems that knowing this fact and what would then have to come of it afterwards might actually have been one of the reasons that he chose this place for the exchange of oaths, right? I mean, because now the nature of this place is going to change after we do this.
Yeah. He obviously knew that once these oaths were exchanged and Eorl went back north to get his people, he would kind of have to remove the tomb of Elendil.
Yeah.
After all, this location was no longer the midpoint of the Kingdom of the South, and in fact, it was on the border of another country altogether.
Exactly. And beyond that, he even interpreted while the kingdom endures as being key to this change as well. He reasoned that Isildur meant the kingdom as it was at the time that he spoke. Now, I don't know about you. I kind of feel like that's a stretch.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what Isildur meant.
Right.
I also think it's okay. He doesn't need a reason beyond the fact that it's no longer the midpoint of the Kingdom of the South.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think so too. I think it just, like I said earlier, it just feels kind of odd to have your kind of greatest forefather buried on the border. It's it'd almost be like if you were ashamed of him. It's like, how far away
we basically almost banished him. Right.
Right. Yeah. It's like, we'll leave him technically on our property, but at the very edge.
We'll put him out on the South 40 over by the fence.
Right. Yeah. Turning to the text here. Therefore, since the entire region of Calanarthon was being given away forever, the kingdom wasn't the same as it was in the days of Isildur, is what we're getting at here with Cirion.
Exactly. I do like the distinction that he makes about the other lost lands, right? I mean, Ithilien is gone. Minas Ithil is actually in enemy hands, but Gondor hadn't given up those lands, right? They still had claim to them. And in fact, we know they eventually take them back after King Elessar comes to power, right? Eventually Minas Ithil gets cleaned up and certainly Ithilien gets repopulated because they get their own prince, Faramir.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's a little different here, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's definitely different, because here he's granting Calanarthon by oath to another people.
Yeah, exactly. It's done.
Making this, this is a separate and independent nation.
Yeah.
That's entirely different. And I do think it changes the kingdom in this context.
That's fair. I mean, yeah, sure. It feels a bit rules lawyery, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
Cirion's taking his role, his powers, his duties and obligations very, very seriously. And I do like how thoughtful he is on this. Interestingly, here, Cirion is said to remove the tomb after Eorl left to go north. But in the drafts, he originally moved it a bit sooner. Going back to the rivers and beacon hills of Gondor in the Nature of Middle-earth, we read, by this agreement originally, only a small part of the wood west of the Mering stream was included in Rohan. But the hill of Anwar was declared by Cirion to be now a hallowed place of both peoples, and any of them might now ascend to its summit with the leave of the king of the Eotheod or the steward of Gondor. For the following day after the taking of the oaths, Cirion and Eorl with 12 men ascended the hill again, and Cirion let open the tomb. It is fitting now at last, he said, that the remains of the father of kings should be brought to safekeeping in the hallows of Minas Tirith. Doubtless, had he come back from the war, his tomb would have been far away in the north. But Arnor is withered, and Fornost is desolate, and the heirs of Isildur have gone into the shadows, and no word of them has come to us for many lives of men.
Now, Christopher Tolkien adds that right after this, his father quit writing and grabbed a new piece of paper and then wrote the text as it stands in Unfinished Tales, postponing the opening of the tomb and the removal of the remains of Elendil to Minas Tirith to a later point in the story.
I love that. I love that we're able to see that thought process at work, that Christopher Tolkien's like, well, here, my dad stopped writing on this piece of paper. He grabbed a new piece of paper and nope. I'm changing the story to this.
Right,
We're going to move the tomb later after Eorl heads off.
My favorite ones are when like Christopher will determine when something was written by the type of typewriter or the type of paper that he was using. Like, oh, this must have been in 1941 because he's using this typewriter.
Exactly. I love that. Or sometimes it's, through the fact that, on the back side of it is a document that he does know is written in a particular period of time, you know?
Yeah.
I also like it, though, when he says, I had no idea what my dad said here. I can't read his handwriting. It's totally illegible. And it often is. So
Yeah.
it is true that, what Cirion says here, that no word had come to them for many lives of men. That last word with Arnor, it would have been actually Arthedain, would have been from Arvedwi in Third Age 1974, more than 500 years before this. That entire time, the Dunedain to the north, the Rangers, have obviously not been in communication with Gondor.
It's a long time.
It's 500 years. I mean, I'm thinking, okay, that's 1524 from now, or 1525. I mean, man, that's a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So Cirion here, he moves Elendil's tomb. That must have been quite the undertaking, not just an engineering thing, but a spiritual thing as well. This is essentially the father of their nation, or, the father of the fathers of their nation, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's true. I mean, he and his sons established, I guess he established Arnor, actually. His sons established Gondor. So you're right. The father of the fathers of the kingdom.
Yeah.
It's quite the thing. And part of me wants to understand this from a practical perspective. Like, how did they do this? Did they, bring a pretty big wagon up there to bring the casket back to Minas Tirith? Were there procedures and things, sort of like we have when a president or a senator or a sitting justice on the Supreme Court passes away and they lie in state in the rotunda at the Capitol building, and there's a lot of formality and ceremony, and you sort of wonder. I mean, they didn't just dig them up and go like, well, let's take them all back in Minas Tirith now. I mean, throw them over your shoulder and let's go. I mean, no, they would have. This would have been. I mean, I don't really want to draw religious parallels, but it
probably would have been very reverential, though.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, somewhere between let's throw them in a sack and carry them back home and Israelites carrying the ark. Somewhere between those two extremes.
I think it's probably closer to the latter, too.
Closer to the latter, in the sense that there's a ton of reverence, a ton of awe, right? The Hill of Awe. Yeah. And that awe is going to be traveling with them as they head back to.
No, I'm sure it was like a host of people accompanying it,
Yeah. Boy, what an interesting thing that would have been.
Yeah.
So, he moves it. And of course, where else is he going to move it? He moves it to the Hallows in Minas Tirith, where the kings and the stewards have all been buried. That totally makes sense. Like he said in the draft that didn't make it into the final version, he undoubtedly would have been buried there in the first place had he come back for more, right? Had he returned. So there you go. And, I also like the fact that he left the mound, even without the casket in it, he left the mound as a mound, as the memorial of a memorial. I find that beautiful.
Yeah.
And then I have questions. Like, I want to know, can anybody go here now? Right? Do we still have to keep this place a secret?
Yeah.
Can anybody go and be at the place that once served as the tomb of Elendil?
Probably like charge admission now if they.
Oh no, they're not going to turn it into a state park, are they? They're going to put a blue plaque up. This place was once the the tomb of Elendil. Man, that's just.
Well, we know that that's where Aragorn and Eomer would renew the oaths, right?
That is correct. You're 100% correct. That is where they go, even though the tomb is no longer there. They go to the memorial
they go to the
memorial
spot for the the historical significance of it. Yeah.
And there, it's the historical significance of the oath
of the oaths. Renewing. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Which is interesting, right?
Yeah, I do like the idea that not only is Elendil. We've got Elendil, Aragorn, like all these people, and Merry and Pippin also get buried. Yeah. Get laid to rest in the Hallows of Minas Tirith.
I know. I love that.
That's pretty great.
That is pretty great.
Same place as Elendil. Like, dang.
I doubt they're in the same wing.
No, they're not. I mean, there's
Yeah.
I'm sure it's like the Hall of Fame. Like, they go by year,
They go by year. Well, they don't do it by height, that's for sure.
They don't.
They got their own level way below.
Right.
They're in the basement, but they're still in the Hallows, yeah.
Yeah. So still, as you can imagine, even after Elendil's tomb was moved, this is still a very reverential and awe-inspiring location.
It really is. I mean, the history, now it's not just the history of the Tomb of Elendil, it's the history of the Oath of Cirion Eorl.
Right,
to the point that the Rohirrim even named it the Holy Mountain, right? I mean, it's what it says on the tin.
I like how for them it's a mountain, but for Gondor they call it a hill.
A hill, that's right. Yeah. That's fair. I mean, these are horse people who live in the plains.
They're horse people. They do the plains, Right. They're like, whoa, look at that mountain.
Slight up gradient is now a mountain. So, I mean, I think, though, of course, one of the reasons they call it a holy mountain is not so much about that Elendil's tomb was once there, is that their nation began there. Right?
Yeah.
The oaths were exchanged at this place. So, Well, the bag, therefore, that Barliman had set within the mound, Cirion removed to the common room at the Pony. But the green mound remained as the memorial of a lot of mail. Matt, what does Barliman have for us tonight besides more awful mailbag segues?
They just keep coming.
They do.
I feel like they get longer too.
They do. I think next time I'm going to do the entire last paragraph.
You might as well. Yeah. So Barliman has a message for us from Rodney from Illinois. Rodney says, I just saw War of the Rohirrim last night and really liked it. Dare I hope that this is a good sign for Hunt for Gollum? What are your hopes and fears for it? What do you want to see and what do you not want to see?
I definitely don't want to see CG generated characters that I don't want to see a young Legolas being even younger. You know what I mean?
The face swap thing.
The face swap thing. I don't want to see CG and AI characters. I don't want to see AI anything, frankly.
Yeah, no. I still am scarred from seeing, like, especially season 2 of Mandalorian, Luke Skywalker, I think it is.
Oh, yeah. That was...
Is it season 2? Yeah, I think it's the end of season 2 where he shows up and he's got, like, just those soulless eyes and plastic face. And I'm like, please don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Please don't do that. So that I think it's probably easier for me to talk about my fears than my hopes. Is that terrible?
Yeah, that's
have I been scarred and traumatized by other
I think that's where a lot of fans go to after,
Well, I've been burned by the Battle of the Five Armies and also burned in some ways by at least some of the storylines in Rings of Power.
Yeah.
Perfect.
We talked about this during the last hangout, but I think Ian McKellen coming back would, like, I'd take that any day of the week.
Yeah. I mean, I think he can be, so long, and please, I'm just saying this, knock on wood, so long as he's actually still alive. No Grand Moff Targeting of Gandalf.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's, like he said, as long as he's around, he wants to play Gandalf, which I'm like...
And he can, because they don't have to de-age him. He's old, so what? Yeah. Gandalf's old. Yeah. I mean,
it's
seriously.
Like what he has like 5 more wrinkles than he did during The Hobbit or whatever. Like, who cares? What? Like, he's old. Like, there is a certain trade-off that you make, and I make the same argument. Like, they can do some pretty amazing things with, especially Weta. I mean, keep in mind,
Weta can do anything. Yeah.
But like if they were able to with makeup make Viggo look younger, like close enough, I would be okay with him playing Aragorn. But it depends. It depends on how he how he looks with the makeup and stuff. And like, you could do a little digital de-aging, just as long as you're not doing the whole face swap thing.
Yeah, no face swap thing.
That's where it's in Uncanny Valley.
Yep.
So yeah, that's one of the things where it's like, on one hand, I would be like, oh, Viggo's coming back. I love Viggo. I'd be excited. But then I'd also be like, Viggo's coming back. How's that going to work? I'm a little nervous about that.
I also think, like, I would love to see a whole new cast get a chance at this. I really would. I mean, except for maybe Ian McKellen.
Yeah, right? No.
Who are you going to get who's going to be like, yeah, I'll try to tackle that role?
No, as long as if Ian McKellen is alive and wants to do it, then I'm like, come on in, buddy.
Come on back.
Let's do it. But yeah, no, I've seen some folks kicking around ideas for, someone younger-ish who could play Aragorn. I saw someone post Andrew Lincoln he was in The Walking Dead, is what I mainly know him for. British actor who in The Walking Dead does an American accent, but yeah,
I love that when
yeah. No, I had no idea that he
British
was,
or Australian actors do American accents.
yeah,
and
you
can't
watch him
tell
in the
they're-
behind the scenes, and you're
It's
like,
great.
what the heck?
Yeah.
But yeah, he was one where I was like, oh, like he's got the acting chops. I could see him pulling off. But
Okay.
yeah, so I think there's definitely opportunity for new actors for certain roles.
Yeah.
I will say that I hope that a lot of this does focus on Aragorn, honestly. I think he's got,
Yeah.
like, it's kind of up in the air right now. Like, I've heard things kind of both ways, whether, the hunt for Gollum, if it's about the hunt for Gollum, then it's presumably going to be a lot about Aragorn.
It's a lot about Aragorn, right?
If it's focused on Gollum,
which I think it's going to be. I mean,
see, that's what scares me.
That's
though.
a fear
like,
of mine.
I'm scared of getting too much Gollum. It's kind of like the getting too much Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, you can overdose. I mean, it needs to be in an appropriate amount. I have some hopes that it'll be that way, only because he's also directing, and so he's going to be too busy to star in 50% of his movie.
Oh, that's a good point.
So maybe, but yeah, it should focus primarily on Aragorn and give us,
I think so,
some Gandalf, some Gollum, some Thranduil. There's another returning cast member. I would have no problem with Lee Pace coming back to play Thranduil.
Oh, he's fantastic as Thranduil.
Yeah.
The attitude,
he's such a diva. He's great.
He's the closest thing to like a first age elf I feel like we've seen. Like,
he really does get the Thingol feel, doesn't he?
He does, yeah.
Yeah, that haughtiness,
yes, you are so freaking stuck up, man. So full of yourself.
No, he really is.
He just does it so well. You can't help but appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's really good.
I'm patient. I can wait.
And because elves are, well, not immortal, serially longeval, I have no problem with him playing that role.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mostly because I'd like to see him again without ever having to subject myself to The Hobbit. Let's just be clear. Can we say that in all honesty? Yes, we can. What do I hope for? I hope that Howard Shore comes back. I really, really hope that Howard Shore does the music for it. So good.
Yeah.
I mean, even though the Hobbit film score was not quite up to the same,
it's
awesomeness,
it's
still really, really good. I mean, if you'd never heard the Lord of the Rings score and you only heard the Hobbit scores, it's really good. It's just that you're comparing it to one of the very best scores ever.
But I mean, I still can hum from memory Hobbit scores as well. Like the Lake Town theme is one of my favorites, and obviously the Misty Mountains.
Oh, the songs. I love that.
Oh, it's so good.
I know now. I've got that stuck in my head. Yes, I hope Howard Shore comes back.
Yeah, I could also see like how good would Lee Pace's Thranduil, Thranduil's reaction to seeing Gollum for the first time.
Oh,
how repulsed would he be?
He's so repulsed by dwarves. I mean, by the king of the dwarves.
Yeah. Like, you bring this wretched creature into my house and you want me to keep him here?
You want me to what? Gandalf, you ask too much. Yeah. What do I hope? I do think I hope for Ian McKellen and Lee Pace, but I also hope for a whole new cast other than that. I hope for Howard Shore. I hope for no AI, no face replace,
Yeah, the
no
creepy stuff. Yeah.
Governor Tarkin, Grand Moff Tarkin, I should say. No Princess Leia at the end of Rogue One. Yeah, I don't want to see that. I don't know.
Yeah,
what
I think
else?
I'm pretty on the same page, except for I'm willing to see if they judge practical makeup and maybe slight digital makeup on Vigo and it works.
You're okay with that? I'm a little less okay with Vigo.
See, because I'm okay, he looks a little bit older. I can suspend disbelief enough, because I mean, he was no spring chicken when they made Lord of the Rings. He was in his 40s already. So it's not
Wait a minute, what are you saying about spring chickens?
Dude, I'm 40. I'm just saying, I'm just saying.
I feel like you're setting up an old joke here.
Well, no, I feel like there's a bigger difference, when you look like Orlando Bloom, who was 18, when he made Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And then if he were to come back now, like, he's 40, like
he's going to look it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't know how that works. Like,
no,
because he's,
somebody who wasn't youthful to begin with.
Like, Aragorn was already, he was playing an 87-year-old, for crying out loud.
That's right. He was playing an 87-year-old who knew when he didn't like a stew.
Although technically, as Tom Shippey has pointed out, he was 88. In that scene.
That's right.
Because it was after March 1st. But
yeah.
So he's got range, man. Like, he played 88 at 40. Like, he could play 87. He's going to be 87 or 86.
Yeah. Yeah.
At 65. Like, he's still got years, man.
He does. He does. Oh, man. Good stuff. Good question. And I am looking forward to it. I think it's fair to say, given who's putting it together, I'm not even cautiously optimistic. I'm just optimistic.
Yeah, I think, and we're not going to get into spoilers because we will have had that with the Rohirrim review and stuff. But
right
after watching it, I actually felt like confidence going forward with these. Sorry, I'm not going to spoil anything. Just
nope.
After watching it, I was like, all right, giddy up, let's go.
That's right.
Let's get some more movies. I'm ready. All
right. I'm ready too. And folks, that wraps it up for another episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast. But please be sure to come back next week when we start another Rohirric digression as we begin our look at the battles of the Fords of Isen.
That's right. And Alan and I, of course, want to thank all the members of Team PPP, editor Jordan Rannells, Barlaman Becca Davis, social media manager Casey Hilsey, event and Patreon community coordinator Katie McKenna, graphic artist Megan Collins, and website guru Phil Dean.
Now, please take a minute to check out theprancingponypodcast.com. That's where you'll find show notes, outtakes, Prancing Pony Ponderings, and our online storefront where you can get PPP merch, including all the really cool episode artwork that Megan's been doing for the show over the last 2+ seasons.
You'll also want to visit our library page. The Prancing Pony Podcast is, after all, a podcast about the books, so if you're interested in a book we mentioned on the show, you'll find a link for it in our library. We do get a small amount of compensation when you make your purchase, and we thank you for that.
Indeed we do. And we also want to thank our patrons at the Círdan's contribution tier. I'll start with DeMay in Alaska, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Joseph in Michigan, Kathy from North Carolina, Carlos in California, Brian in the UK, Jerry from Washington, Joe in Washington, Erwin from the Netherlands, Ben in Minnesota, Anthony in Texas, Zaksu in Illinois, Sarah in New Jersey, Joshua in Massachusetts, Lucy in Texas, Keith in Alabama, and Erica in Texas.
There's also Carson in Oklahoma, Vivian in California, James in Massachusetts, Ann in Kentucky, Sean in New Jersey, Mason in California, Maureen from Massachusetts, Olivia in London, Robert in Arizona, Nick in Wisconsin, Lewis in South Carolina, Thomas in Germany, Craig in California, Bailey in Texas, Kevin in Massachusetts, Julie in Washington, Bruce in California, Joe in Maryland, Nathan in Arizona, and Kevin in Pennsylvania. Thank you all so very much for your support.
Indeed, thank you.
Make sure you don't miss any episodes of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Subscribe now through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast app.
And one last thing as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and most of all, your camping tips for the Hallow to barlaman@theprancingponypodcast.com.
And if you want your voice literally heard, well, just send us audio of your question. Visit podinbox.com/prancingponypod to record your question for us. Please be sure to still email the question to Barlaman, though.
That's right. Now, even though Barlaman's been a lot more reliable lately, there is still a lot of mail for us to sort through. We'll try to get to you just as soon as we're able. As always, though, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time,
this is the end. We are going. We are leaving now. Goodbye.